One of the most fundamental rights we have in America is the right to keep and bear arms, and we need to make sure that these rights are not infringed. Now, the people of District 12 understand the importance of guns as they're prolific hunters. They need them for defense. But they also understand that the Founding Fathers made this a Second Amendment because they understood it was our best chance to stand against tyranny. People say this could never happen in the United States. We'd never have a tyrannical government. But they're wrong. That's what all governments say before they enter tyrannies. If we look at Venezuela, which has been praised by many Democratic leaders, we can see that their people have been saying in recent months that they wish that they wouldn't have given up their right to arms because that defense was the only thing that would have stopped the tyranny. Once they gave up those rights, tyranny predictably ensued. The Democratic Party isn't honest oftentimes about exactly what they do with guns, or they're ignorant in their argumentation. For example, they'll suggest banning something like bump stocks or assault weapons, but they oftentimes have difficulty even defining them. Each one of these incremental steps will never satiate them, and they'll always come for the next step. For example, oftentimes they'll say, we only want to get rid of assault weapons. And you'll ask what that means. And they'll say, well, ones that you could just pull the trigger and they shoot. And when you tell them that there's already significant steps to impose people from getting automatic weapons, they say, well, the ones that look scary. And when you tell them that you could put a wood stock on an AR-15 and make it look like any other long arm, they say, well, the one's one trigger, one pull. Well, when you tell them that that would be a handgun, they will say, well, no, we don't mean that. This is indicative of the fact that they're not serious about actually researching. In fact, they're just trying to have a power grab. Also, never forget that the original gun grabbing and the idea to end the Second Amendment occurred to try to keep, by the Democrats, to try to keep guns out of the hands of recently freed slaves. This was used back then by the Democratic Party as a power grab to ensure that people that they didn't respect didn't have the right to self-defense. And one could argue that that's what some Democrats are doing today as well. We need to not give any ground on these issues. I know a lot of other candidates will be talking about how the right to keep and bear arms needs to be protected, but I think that I could uniquely argue it in a way that makes sense to even people that aren't necessarily fully on board with that right now. For example, you could point out that instead of creating new laws that only law-abiding citizens will obey, we should enforce laws that we already have on the books. Under 1% of people that actually try to buy illegal firearms are actually federally prosecuted. This is absurd. The federal government is discussing having new laws instead of enforcing the reasonable ones that they already have on the list that say criminal felons can't get these guns. All this does is affect law-abiding citizens and make sure that the only people that will be left with guns are criminals. We need to draw a line in the sand now. I will protect the Second Amendment, make sure that your right to keep and bear arms aren't infringed, and be able to articulate why the Democrats are ignorant on the subject and are attempting to have a power grab to disarm all Americans.